Hello everyone. It's been a while since I've made a video, and to make up for that, I'm going to be reading the entirety of my book, The Blue Traveler: Links and Other Less Than Finished Works by Parnell. So now, as you can see on the back is the little blurb, and this says, "This book is an anthology of writings I've done over many years. It shows how much I've grown as a person, as well as it shows a bittersweet insight into a psychotic mind. The first unfinished work is called The Blue Traveler, which just so happens to be the name of my alter ego during said psychosis. The next book, The Death of Charlie Lynx, later changed to simply Lynx, is a book I've been writing and editing since high school. This version is a far more finished look at Lynx, as well as a showcase of how far my writing has improved over the years." Then there's my picture. I was born in 1994, raised in a college town in Michigan. I've always been an optimist, thinking that life will go the way it wants to, and we all may be better for it. I'm really proud of this book, and although I don't think it will amount to much, I think it's good, and I hope you like it. Now, I will be starting from the first story, because in a different video I actually did read about the author already. So I will be starting from right here. Truly for my mom, who always said that she and my dad were my biggest fans. The Blue Traveler, number 1 of the less than finished works by Parnell. Chapter 1. The Traveler Embarks. Power was the first thing that I felt. It was like I had been born into a comic book. Red, blue, it all meant something. It felt as if I was moving in 5 ways at once. It felt amazing, but unnatural. Am I having a seizure? I wondered. I was unsure of anything at the moment. I looked up from my wheelchair to see the concerned look on my mom's face. It was there, but not in the way that you would expect from a mom with a son having a seizure. She looked more like a mom who was taking their son to the mental hospital for the first time, which is exactly what was happening. That's when everything flashed before my eyes. Further evidence of a possible seizure, I thought, before the world went blurred. It was a few weeks ago when I found out about my abilities. I was going to school to become a psychologist. I was content with an easy load of classes, lots of free time, and spending some of it catching up with my old friends from high school. My earliest memory of something odd happening was when I was riding my bike past my favorite spot, when suddenly, and out of nowhere, I was standing under a streetlight smoking a blue electronic cigarette. This is how the Blue Traveler began. This is his origin story. What? Where am I? What am I doing here? I thought frantically. I was on my bike. I must have fallen off and hit my head. Is that how concussions work? Can you get blackout drunk without drinking? I don't feel drunk. I looked down at my hands. What is this? I don't remember buying this. I contemplated throwing the cheap, vapor-producing, sleek black e-cig down to the pavement as I began to get shivers down my spine. Instead, I decided to try and act normal in this foreign situation. I tried to calm myself down, tried to reason with myself. I know that I did buy my mom an electronic cigarette for Christmas, but it was so overpriced that I didn't buy 2, and I had it sent to the house anyway. It didn't work. I was growing more and more anxious by the second. I don't even smoke. I have figured that if I could just understand why I was doing what I was doing, maybe I could figure out the rest too. Like, maybe I had developed a nicotine habit recently and this would all go away if I could just remember doing so. The dysphoria of riding my bike not half a minute ago during the daylight and it now being nighttime would not go away. I was reminded of the movie Memento. Oh God, I really hope I'm not like a memento. There was a lot of thoughts swirling around in my head when I finally gave up. Oh God, what the hell? I'm not crazy, I remember thinking. I know that. I take time to myself, and I'm probably the most sensible one in my friends group. Besides, I stopped using recreational drugs before I went to college. While I was standing around reasoning to myself, nothing around me was happening. It was just me under a particularly bright streetlight, and not another soul in sight. My mind started to slow down. It was like I had been thinking so much and so fast that my brain had decided to dial it back a bit. I tried to force myself to figure it all out, but instead, my mind went more or less blank, like trying to move an immovable object, I slowly thought. I looked down at my hand again and found that things had changed. In my hand, where there was a blue brand electronic cigarette, was now a real one, letting off secondhand smoke as I held it. The shock stopped my thinking as I let go of the cig. That's when things went weird. If they weren't strange before they were now, something was wrong with all of reality. After that moment, I would never be the same. Thankfully, at this moment, I was on top of it. I knew exactly where I was and where I needed to be, where my place in all this was. I was important now. I had everything under control. I was getting wheeled up to the mental hospital. Okay, maybe not a seizure, just a flashback? Or was that real? After all this time, I can't tell. I looked up at my concerned mother's face. She thinks it's a psychosis. Maybe she's right. Meanwhile, the version of me in my flashback during the exact same moment was busy getting confused. Hey, it's Man Bear Pig, some college students yelled at me. My clothes had changed, and I was now wearing brown shoes and a black leather jacket. I didn't know why I was being called Man Bear Pig at the moment, but I really didn't care. I was riding my bike, then I was vaping, then smoking, and now this? I was now downtown, walking then, frozen in fear, because 3 seconds ago I was under a streetlight on campus, and 2 minutes before that it was daytime and I was riding my bike. Oh, how I miss my bike. Oh, how I miss when things were normal. A few minutes have passed and now everything's insane. What happened to me? I used to be normal. 5 minutes ago I was normal. While I was lost in thought, the college students had already laughed, walked off a little, and said, "Keep it real," in a condescending tone. I was heading to a friend's house. The problem was that I was running into a paradox. I was there. The house was there. But my friend was still overseas and didn't live there yet. In fact, he wouldn't for a number of years. How do I know all this? How did I get here? I'm tired of repeating things. That brings us back to here. Heading down corridor after corridor, all the way down to the ward to save the man-bear-pig confused version of me in my flashbacks from a paradox a few months back. It feels like it's been years since that moment. So much has happened to me. Things that are hard to explain. I've grown stronger and yet still here I am. No avoiding this, I suppose. I need to be here. How can I save the world if I can't even save myself? I could see the nexus of the past, present, and the future. The mental hospital was my crossroads and my best chance to salvaging some sense of reality. This will be my chance to get some answers, I thought, because at this point, I'm as confused as you are. I'm sorry, Mom. I'm sorry. I tried. I said, trying to choke back tears in the elevator. It's okay, she told me. Reassuringly, she said. I'm concerned, but I know everything's going to be okay and it's not your fault. Just try your best to get better and they're okay. Meanwhile, in a reality close by, I could see a younger version of myself signing his life away to the Traveler program, a program dedicated to saving the balance of the Omniverse. Are you still proud of me? I asked without knowing why. My concerned mom's face transformed into a puzzled one. Let's just focus on getting better, okay? That wasn't me. I considered telling my mom this, but with the nurse there, I felt it best to keep my mouth shut. I remember when I was younger, I thought shadows were my friends. I thought swinging on a swing set really high could give you superpowers. I thought hanging upside down on the monkey bars would give you brain power. I thought the world wasn't exactly what it seemed and that was fine. So why was it now so important that I take this next step? Well, because too much was at stake. I can remember the world falling into the black hole at the end of the universe and ending. It was one of the most devastating things that I had experienced up until this point. Everyone was taken by surprise. There was panic in the streets, a moment of bliss when everyone's eyes lit up like headlights, and then bodies fallen and frozen in a silhouette form. I hadn't tracked the year when I saw it, but I could feel things, and it felt as if it was only years away. When I came back to my own timeline, I was in my college dorm room, lying down and listening to music. I was so frightened that I ran home to warn everyone. I didn't have a car, and my bike mysteriously disappeared a few weeks ago. It was a long run, but I did it. I had no time to lose, or so I thought. Understandably, that's when my parents started to worry. They wanted me to stay home. Sounds like a good idea, I lied. I went dimension hopping and then time jumping instead from inside my old bedroom. At this point in time, I had developed my powers pretty well. I didn't know how to stop the end of the world though, so I was just trying to extend my time. I had come to terms that some people might not believe me about the things I say, because it was outside their own realm of possibilities. So when I jumped through time, I would mostly just try and remember how I did things the first time and try and relive them. Most of the time I would hop through dimensions. I would try and blend in. I didn't want to be recognized. I wanted to feel normal. At this point, it felt like I'd been doing this forever. I knew, though, that it was all going to end once I got inside the mental hospital. How did I know? You might be expecting some explanation that would make the story more interesting. Instead, this is just how I remember it. I saw it in a dream. Not even the mental hospital itself, just a sketch of one. 4 squares, really, if I'm being objective. But I remember looking at that sketch from the dream a long time ago, wondering how it was they could keep me from walking out. So there I was, being wheeled in. The beginning of the end, so I thought. Author's note. A small interruption. Hey, how are you holding up? I had to take a break from writing for a bit. Had to get some sleep, but now I'm back. I hope that you're enjoying the story thus far. Yesterday I finished writing the first few pages of the story, as well as the intro and about the author. Today might not be as productive as yesterday, and that's okay. It's important to pace yourself when trying something new, and only picking up the pace when you're ready for it. Sleep is important too. I remember a few times during the story where I was pushing myself so hard that I would be neglectful to what my body and mind really needed. I guess what I'm trying to say is that everyone takes a break, and it's okay if you need to too, even if it's from this book. Also, here's a poem I wrote for those struggling with mental disorders. I'm not crazy. I'm broken and hazy on what's truth and what's lies. I've spoken the feeling of bright-colored eyes. I change with the times. I beat out these rhymes. I don't commit crimes, but I want to. Beat down heaven and bring it to earth, or bring hope to birth, but not hope in the Pope, but hope in the birth of humanity. I want to travel and unravel what's been made. I want to bring home D-Day and call a parade. I want to kill my mind, or just unwind or find myself. I want to find something worth having, worth more than wealth. Maybe the answer to 42 is why not. Maybe the answer we lost is we fought. Maybe being crazy is just knowing more than what we should, like we could be on the level, but fear and the devil throwing a fit makes us commit to social norms and belief in reform. Maybe I am crazy. Maybe I'm not. Maybe I lost this battle, but I'll tell you what, I fought. Links. Number 2 of the Less Than Finished Works by Jacob Parnell. Chapter 1. Shock and Denial. Death, according to the world's leading search engine, is a noun. In other words, death is a person, place, or thing. Because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. Emily Dickinson. The Brooklyn Bridge, New York City. Wind flicked back past my dark brown cherry hair, and my eyes were as big as I could open them. My hands, my lips, my toes, everything felt cold. I felt a chill that went past all those things as well. The kind of chill that reached down deep inside of you. The wrenching feeling just stood there, and instead of trying to push it away, I let it consume me. Everything had left me. Everything was gone. The worst part was I didn't even understand what everything was. The only thing I saw around me were humans. Human beings being their human selves. I felt so disconnected from them, like I was once part of the crowd, but I diverged somewhere along the line. I wonder what I'll have for dinner. This was my last thought before I jumped. Author's note. Another small interruption. Hey, it's me again. Sorry to once again barge in like this, but I feel the need to point something out. This story starts out with a sort of melancholy view, doesn't it? Well, I just wanted to mention that I wasn't in the best place when I wrote this. And once again, topics such as suicide can be very scary, even triggering under the right circumstance. Throughout my life, I've dealt with this topic way too many times, and I've got to say that if you have thoughts like this, the best option is always to reach out. The right path can be a scary one to face, but it's always better than the alternative. Chapter 2. Anger and Bargaining. I ended up having a burger from a cheap chain restaurant, in case anyone was wondering. Cold, hungry, and damp. I woke up on the shore. People were screaming when I jumped, but I couldn't hear it anymore. This was good. The last thing I wanted was to be brought to a hospital. This was the third attempt since waking up with amnesia and longing for death. I dried myself the best I could before moving again. Seeing as I had no towel or dry clothes, this resulted in me shaking off all the water possible, and when that didn't work, going into McDonald's restroom and kneeling under the dryer for 5 minutes. I then followed the crowd of people to see the results of my most recent attempt. I didn't like to scare people, but ever since I woke up, I can't help but try the jump. It's always the same place, around the same time. I view the event with morbid curiosity. In theory, a jump from that high should end it all. In theory, I'm lucky to be alive. In theory. Once I finally got to the bridge again, the police had already formed a roadblock. There were quite a lot of people crowded around, trying to see what was going on, and it was hard to see past them. Then I saw it. The smoke, the fire, the man sitting on the corner. I listened in on 2 policemen talking about it. Hey, what happened here? Said one to the other. Sad shit, the other replied with a big burger in his hand. Apparently the lady lost control of the wheel and ran right into a van. Damn. Yep. Apparently the lady from the van died. She had her boyfriend in the car with her. He survived. There might have been another casualty as well. The girl got rushed to the ER, so we don't know anything yet. Did he say how she lost control? He said he didn't know. Said she screamed right before that. I felt nauseous. Did I cause this? Is this all my fault? No more. I first saw what I was doing as an attempt on my life, and nothing more. No more attempts, consequences. I would fight the urges to jump next time. There were actual consequences for my actions. Maybe if I get far enough away from the force that drives me to do this, it will lose its power over me. I was seemingly unable to die, but that didn't mean that others were. Excuse me, I heard a voice. I looked down and saw a girl, probably 8 years old, looking up at me. Can you help me find my home? She asked. Why me? Where are your parents? I asked with underlying curiosity. It has to be you, she said in a dry tone. Do you know around where you live? I asked, not pushing the matter further. No, she said once again with the same tone she used before. Can you describe your house to me? I persisted. No. How am I supposed to get you home then? I said in a last attempt effort. I'll show you, she replied with a new sort of energy radiating from her voice. And with that we went. I don't know where I live, but I can feel it, she explained until we came to a crosswalk and stopped. Why do you need me to take you home then? She stayed silent, and we continued walking until we came to an ice cream stand on the side of the road and came to a complete stop. I like ice cream. I reluctantly pulled out my wallet, and don't know why I did, but I took a $5 bill out. I was down to my last cent. It seemed as if fate is determined to make me broke. I handed the damp bill to the man behind the cart and asked for 2 vanilla cones. The man behind the cart was looking at me like I was crazy, but said nothing, probably due to the fact that I still looked like I just went for an afternoon swim, being wet and damp as I was. He made the 2 cones and handed them both to me. Thank you, she said, receiving the cone, before immediately devouring, almost breathing in the ice cream. We continued to walk for 2 more blocks. I was constantly getting headaches from the recurring rounds of brain freeze. Suddenly, I heard a voice from behind me. Excuse me, sir, said a 20-something old man with a scratchy voice. Me and my friend here would be delighted if you were to hand over your wallet. I turned around to see a man in a white hoodie gesturing towards his gun. You really going to rob me in blind daylight? I asked him. He looked confused. I will kill you, he warned. Now give me the wallet and nobody gets hurt. I walked up to him, my death wishes making me forget about the danger. He kept the gun pointed at me. You're crazy, he said, and ran away. He was going to shoot you. Weren't you scared? Said the girl, who I almost forgot was there. She seemed mildly amused. Let's just go, I replied, looking a bit shameful after realizing I may have put her in danger. We walked a few more blocks in silence before we stopped in front of a tall white house with a red door. This is your house? I asked. I got a strange shiver in my back as I looked at it. Yes, it is, she said proudly as she let go of my hand. Thank you, she said as she ran towards the red door. No problem, I replied as I watched her disappear. I then went back to the apartment I woke up in and plopped down on the ugly green couch in the middle of the room and went to sleep. Chapter 3, Depression and Testing. I looked around me. Everything was in black and white. I knew I was having a dream, but it still felt real. I was a silhouette walking around all the white blobs. The white blobs down the road were dancing, weaving in and out of one another. I tried walking over to them. tried to figure out what was going on. They stopped there, mid-swing. I tried talking to one of them. If I didn't figure out what was going on soon, I might lose my mind. One of the blobs motioned me over, but then said that they were far too busy to talk and that I would have to follow him. Dream logic took over and I followed. He hurried along a road of blue and gold while I ran along by his side trying to keep up. He was too fast for me. He jumped into a red lake. I tried to follow. Suddenly colors changed. Things became more real. Bubbles started forming around me, along with fish and sharks. Other sea animals were circling me. I looked up after realizing it was getting hard to breathe. I would have to surface soon. I saw a reflection of myself where the water hit the air. My face with no facial features, a black hole in reality. My body seemed to be made of sticks. I turned to one of the animals and asked what this was all about. I'm normally much better looking, I admitted. You have to find the sun, replied the sea creature in an eerie unison. Suddenly, the sun appeared above the water and my reflection, along with the uneasiness, went away. I swam up. I came closer to the hot ball of gas. I started changing into a variety of things, first a turtle, then a bird, and finally an anchor. It became harder to swim, and the water was pulling me down. I tried to resist the urge to give up and get pulled under, though things were normal below the water. I also couldn't breathe. Just then, the sun above me exploded, consumed me, and I woke up drenched in sweat. I looked over at the clock next to me. The digital numbers read 5:15 a.m. This was the third time this happened. The first two times I chalked up the never-ending weirdness of my life to bad luck. This time I went into the night in search of meaning. I walked down the street like an insomniac. The buildings didn't interest me, the people didn't faze me, everything seemed so bland. In my footsteps walked an emotionless vortex, devoid of life. This one thing I couldn't get rid of. Yet it held no purpose for me, but I continued to hold it close. Was this to prolong my suffering? Was I to be some character in a book to be partly read and never finished? Every time I try ending it all, my dance with the dirt is prevented by some sort of divine force. The more I thought about it, the more emotions began to plant their seed in me. As I walked, the colors faded more and more. The bright lights on the billboards and buildings became only dim. The colors once illuminated by streetlights became reds and blues to grays and blacks. The people who would pass, regardless of if they were just laughing, crying, joking, or arguing, would all just transform into grayish blobs with unflavored expressions. Nothing in this world, or living in this world, started to make me numb to the world, numb towards emotions. Finally, but most thoroughly, numb towards humanity. Now I felt nothing. I continued walking, then I saw it. There was a coffee shop standing directly in front of me like an anchor in the sand, the kind of place you might go to feel normal, the only thing around me that still retained its colors. In anyone's eyes, this was just a regular coffee shop standing on the corner of Washington and Brown. I was compelled to go in, regardless. It was just another 50s-style diner that New York had about 1 million of. In fact, this particular diner looked rather run down. There was an old yellow sign outside that said 24/7. I walked in and the place seemed dead to me. There was no one in the diner but me and the woman behind the counter, sporting a long apron that stated the name of the establishment in big jet black letters. Sally's. "Why, hello there," said the woman with a warm smile and a thick southern accent. She looked like she could kick my ass if she wanted to. "Hi," I replied while walking up to the counter to sit down on one of the many tall orange stools which seemed to decorate the room. It was unexpectedly comfortable. "What can I get you, hon?" "I don't know," I rebuked in an unexpectedly dry tone. "We don't sell that here," she replied with a laugh. I chuckled, unraveling. We have damn good coffee. I'll just take that then. I pulled out the remainder of my cash. You look like you need it. She smiled with a sharp grin that made it look like she had just done me a favor. Thanks, I said, meaning it. A few moments passed, then she broke the silence. You okay? She asked, turning the conversation upside down, but then just turned to complete the task of washing the coffee pot. Can I tell you something? I asked, hoping that she would give me her attention. You can try. I don't know anything, I began. I realize that I don't know anything, so I guess that's something. But other than that, I have no clue. Now that's a tough one, but one I just happen to have the answer to. She replied as if I just asked her a riddle. What's that? I leaned forward, not expecting to hear something that would make my brain wake up into realization and put me right. I would never be like everyone else. I would never be normal. What had changed me and made me so different? Maybe I had just forgotten how to be happy along with everything else. This was the only solution I could think of. Those sitcom families who live on a nice street and hug and have annoying neighbors must know what I'm missing. All of those corporate kingpins, news anchors, and stars that you see on TV must know. All of these people, they look so happy. Why am I not one of them? What went wrong? A question! She interrupted my thoughts triumphantly, and with a force that cut like a knife and left me confused and feeling oddly out of place. What do you mean? Before realizing the context of the conversation and forcing myself out of my head once again. That's not an answer. I tried again. Ah, well, I tried. If you're unhappy with the answer, maybe you can get coffee somewhere else. I couldn't tell if she was joking. Like, where? I don't know. Anywhere. And when you figure everything out, you just let me know. She smiled and said, and instead of sitting awkwardly and trying to make small talk and find answers, I instead finished my coffee, paid, and left. Bless his heart, I heard her utter as I walked out the door. I guess I'll find someplace else. I decided to remember the events of yesterday and the deaths I had caused. Pain shuddered through me as I recalled. I remembered my vow not to jump off the bridge again, and decided to go far away. Chapter 5. Acceptance. I headed down past 41st Street, past Main, past Washington Lane, until I finally reached the subway system. My escape was almost realized. I walked in and saw a brand new world. Looking around, I saw the foggy air with the dim yellow lights gleaming through. Guitar players wearing fingerless gloves, homeless people sitting and begging for money, and a saxophone player playing a song that I didn't quite recognize. There was a warm breeze that came through about every 20 seconds and swept in a wave of security along with it. I felt safe, surrounded by the white and red concrete floors and walls. It was like I was in a shuttle going to space. The subway system protected me from the darkness of the bridge and my past mistakes. The subway system was my comfort, my fortress, my solitude, my hope. I eventually turned my attention over to the saxophone player, who was to the right of me. There was a distinct yellow light that gleamed and reflected off the instrument, shining at me, as if it was smiling brass. When it moved, it then created a dim yellow light on the ground that fluttered like a butterfly. I observed the brass buttons moving in and out, dancing in the man's hands. The instrument seemed to be the one in control, setting itself free as a member of something bigger, something larger than common thinking of life and death. The golden beast made the man's chest go in and out, forced him to breathe. The man's eyes revealed that he was not being controlled, but that he and the saxophone were codependent of each other, zoned out and in a vegetative state, but comfortably so. I listened as the notes escaped in rhythm and beat that displayed with consistency. The beast's thoughts. The notes bellowed in perfect harmony, without pause. It was as if the sound was semi-conscious. When the music stopped, I stood there for several seconds before realizing that I had been listening. Listening, and that's all I was doing, forgetting that I was on a mission. I then heard someone say, "Oh, here we go," and "That's the one I was telling you about." I turned around to see the daytime violent aggressors pulling a knife out of their belt. He was aligned with 3 others. One of them had a bit of trouble pulling a rather large knife out of their back pocket, and soon came running towards me. I ran. The 4 guys chased me unhindered by the sheer amount of people who were watching. I was running out of breath. I got past a hot dog cart and a Korean woman who was pushing her baby towards the subway. I ran, and as I ran, there was varying expressions that met me. Then I stopped, out of breath and out of ideas. I was about to get stabbed. "He's got a gun," I heard someone say. Okay, shot then. Only I looked back and realized that neither had happened yet. I looked towards the voice that said the gun comment and saw the hot dog vendor pointing at me and looking at the guys that were once chasing me, now running in the opposite direction. The woman I passed looked at me, but not with fear, but with relief. She realized what was happening before I did. I looked towards the man who accused me, and he shrugged back. "How did you know that would work?" I asked, worn out and breathing heavy. "I didn't," he admitted. "You're really clever," I said as we waited for the police to come. When they did, I told them everything, from my amnesia to my suicide attempts. Then I got admitted to the hospital and later got released. It's been 6 months now, and I know who I am, or rather who I used to be. I feel disconnected from the life somehow. I haven't tried to jump off the bridge, and since then I haven't gotten that feeling again. I still feel like I'm missing a piece of the puzzle sometimes, but I have my name, and that's something. In case you were wondering, you can call me Charlie Lynx. Author's note about Charlie Lynx. I started writing Charlie Lynx about 8 years prior to finishing it, if you can even call it finished. I was in a dark place in high school when I wrote the majority of it, and it has since been edited for the better more than a few times. Though it's not perfect, I still see Charlie Lynx as one of my first stories I've ever written to an understandable degree. If it feels like his story isn't over, that's because it's not. Originally, the book was intended to be published under the name The Death of Charlie Lynx, and the expectation being that the main character was destined to die the whole time. He would go to Montreal, get chased down by a detective who noticed that he leaves a trail of unexplained deaths behind him, and it would eventually be revealed that Charlie was the Grim Reaper incarnate. Eventually things were changed around and the original idea seemed impractical, although some remains of the idea can still be seen, as the girl who he leads to her house in the first chapter is actually dead. How I came to hate the tick and kill the clock. Finally, a finished work. Tick, 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 tick. The clock went on. I told it to stop, but it just wouldn't listen. I told it to leave me alone, but it stayed. I wanted silence, but yet it went on. Tick, tick, tick. The only clock that didn't talk. It ticked, but nothing else. It came here only to torture me, to show me how mundane my life was. It was always ticking away and nothing else. No talk. A talk would be something new. I couldn't have that. I only got the tick. I wanted variation, but nothing in my life allowed for it. I stood there simply watching the ticking clock every day, watching the seconds go by until my shift eventually got out, and from there, I was replaced by another who would have the joy of watching the ticking clock. I went home and dreamt of the beast that haunted my day. Every morning I would come in at 8 o'clock and leave at 4. Every evening I would go home and sit in my chair watching television, only trying to forget about the ticking of the clock. It never worked. I heard the ticking everywhere I went. I couldn't get rid of that feeling, the feeling that my life would never change, yet I kept going back to that building, the bank where I worked. I did this because I knew that that's what people were supposed to do. Normal and regular. People go to work, watch TV, sleep, and so that's what I was doing, being normal. Tick, tick, tick. The days went on. The days turned into weeks, and the weeks turned into years. The ticking stayed with me all throughout all hours of the day and all hours of the night. Wherever I went, the ticking followed. I stayed working at the same bank building for 22 years, listening to that accursed ticking. I wanted it to talk. Only just one simple, insignificant time I wanted it to talk. One day I got out of bed as always, slipped on some slippers, put my comfortable robe on, and started walking to work. I only walked to work instead of driving that day because I knew that I didn't have to worry about getting there on time. The ticking was waiting for me, just as always. That day was different, though. I was determined to make it different. As I approached the door of the bank that I had so dreaded going to every day for so many years, I looked down at the shiny black gun in my hand and said to myself, I will make it talk. I remember going in and seeing the surprised expressions of my coworkers' faces and the terror in the customers that I regularly see. I saw someone touch the silent alarm under the desk, as we were all trained to do. By then it was too late, though. The gun in my hand was loaded. I calmly raised it in the air, aimed, and fired. It was a beautiful sight, as the glass shattered into a million different pieces, and the taunting hands finally stopped in their places. I felt the change in the air that I had so longed for as the security guard named Bob knocked the breath out of me, and my shiny black gun flew out of my hand, landing on the ground. I started laughing, as I saw a million things seemingly happen at once. I was smiling as the cops came in and handcuffed me. My grin was ear to ear when they threw me in the back of their police cars. Things were finally different. There was no more ticking to haunt me. I looked out the window as I was whisked away to my new life. I saw my past fall to pieces, and I was glad to break it. No more mundane ticking would curse me. My life was now exciting. Everyone probably thought that I had gone to rob the bank that day, but I didn't care what everyone thought. I knew this would happen. The police tried questioning me, and I must say, they put in a valiant effort to get the truth, but I said nothing. I stayed silent. I was free, and that was the only thing that mattered. Granted that jail was my freedom, but yet that was okay. I was no longer doing what I was supposed to do, and that's all that mattered. Joy overwhelmed me. The cops had kept me in handcuffs the entire time. They fingerprinted me and took my picture. I was happy to comply with my eager saviors. Then they put me into a new room. I got a cell to myself, and so I went to bed in order to rest and reflect on my day's work. I laid down and my head hit the new pillow. New was a great word for me. Then I saw it. There was a clock in the hallway. I heard the sound. Talk, talk, talk. And so there I sat, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. Sitting thinking pen and paper, unlimited possibility simulator, because I am not a rapper, I'm a reader and a writer, and right now I write and I type and I fight the fight with my mind all the time, and I can't unwind, so I just wind up and let go. And I won't go slow, and I'll have you know my aspiring fires will grow and glow, and I just can't stop, like an introvert watching a clock tick-tock, tick-tock, and I can hear it now, and I can hear it loud. But let's start again from around the top. Like, have you ever heard the one about the Russian cosmonaut? Up in the sky near the moon, so fly, then he heard the sound and looked around. Tick, 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 the sound was gloating. What could he do? He was still floating around in space, the cold embrace, the ticking sound all in his face. He tried to chase it down, but couldn't find it. And in his mind, he couldn't help but mind it. At the edge of his sanity, where he couldn't let it be, he fell off the cliff and into the sea, where the strangest thing happened. He started tapping and clapping. You see the tick turn to talk and the talk turn to music, and that tick tock, I can't help but amuse it because it's in my mind all the time and I just can't stop because I hear the clock. And from the top, I'm not a rapper, I'm a reader and a writer, and right now I'm not a writer, I'm a tick-tock insider with aspiring fires that go brighter and brighter. And if I go deranged or if I go insane, my words would turn into voices, and my voices would say, we're not voices, we're choices, and my choices are clear but not here or there. I can't see them because they're up in space in a cold, cold place that I can only taste in retrospect. And these are the things that make respect all things, even regrets, because even regrets are choices that you just can't hear because the voices that made them aren't so near and dear to your heart because they're up in space for a lone cosmonaut's ears to embrace. Author's note. To tick or to talk, is that the question? Now, I wanted to post these last two stories side by side as compare and contrast. I'll let you glean the meaning, but the thing I wanted to point out is that people change, time moves on, and we shouldn't be ashamed of our past. Personally, I see the TikTok story as problematic, and I'm the one who wrote it. I still wanted to add it, though, to show a representation of the subtle impressions that we as a society need to look out for. I realize that you're reading this in hopes of being entertained, but this is my soapbox, damn it. My point is this. Let things improve with time because it's either do that or destroy something that you worked so hard to create in the first place. Alright, now that's out of the way, shall we? Park Ranger, number 3 of the Less Than Finished Works by Jacob Parnell. It was a warm-toned summer day, the kind that you might post on Instagram but not get any likes. There was a bit of wind that tussled with the park ranger's long blonde but dingy hair. The wind soon died down, and the park ranger was left alone with his thoughts. My memory is not what it should be, thought the park ranger. I get minimum wage, he contemplated. That's barely enough to live on, he concluded. Such is the conclusion of the common man, and Ted Bundy was a very common man. He was right, though. The minimum wage was not enough to live on, at least in Ted Bundy's situation. Perhaps if he were born to another place, he would be happier, wealthier even. Ted Bundy lived at home and worked his minimum wage job as a park ranger, which he had heard paid more than minimum wage. In actual fact, it did, but when Ted was asked to put down how much he expected to be making, his new boss saw an opportunity. I suppose you might be wondering why you are reading about such a simple man and a simple life. Then again, maybe your attention is captured, and maybe you're wondering how the manager of a national funded park ranger's office can get away with stuffing his pockets with the scheme of stifled pay. Who can really say? Dundee, said his boss Albert, calling him to the park ranger's ranger station, no doubt to do a nominal task. Hey, said the park ranger as he walked towards the park ranger's ranger station on that #NoFilter day. You should know as a reader, you have potential. You have the potential to be whomever you want to be. And it's just a matter of using your mind and body as a series of dams to decide where that potential leads. Ted Bundy once had that potential. Growing up, he was always smart. A nerd in middle school, a hipster in high school, a regular student in college. Something about his spark just up and went away, thus leaving him stranded as an underpaid park ranger who gets cheated out of his money by someone named Albert. My memory isn't what it should be. I get minimum wage, and that's barely enough to live on. God, my life is barely worth noting. If I were writing the story, it would be different. After that moment of contemplation, my boss called me into the station, as we park rangers call it. No doubt to give me a nominal, unforgettable task to fill my day. Ted, I've got a favor to ask, started my boss, a schmo named Albert. A favor I may not refuse, I replied silently and sarcastically within the safe confines of my mind. Shoot, I replied instead. I need you to... And at that moment, a tree adjacent to the station fell unexpectedly and inexplicably right on Albert's head. I screamed for help for a minute and a half straight, but no one came, and so I collected myself, took the cash out of the cash drawer, and left. Later that day, I bought myself a pizza and explained to the police that today was my day off, and lived happily ever after. Did you get all that? Concluded Albert. Shoot, I was daydreaming again. What did he say? Something about construction workers. Maybe they're building something? What was that part you said after construction? I grasped. Get your head out of the clouds, Ted. I said that next week's construction workers are coming to build the new playground. Keep out of their way. Can you do that for me, Ted? He said passive-aggressively, or maybe aggressively. I can never tell with people like that. No problem, sir, I might have added, but didn't. To be continued. Author's note. Notes about Park Ranger. The original idea started from a song. The idea that at the apex of the song, the character would be in a dream world fighting dragons, while in the real world he would be saving a construction worker from a malfunctioning crane. The story never filled out, but the idea is still there. How to be human. Number 4, it might be 5, of the less than finished works of Jacob Parnell. Lessons 1, 2, and 3. Tuesday, April 26, 2016, 3:13 p.m. How to be human. The definitive guide for being on Earth. Lesson 1. Lesson 1 is all you need, really. But if you feel like you need more, the others are there for you. There are 2 types of people in this world, those who see themselves as a person and those who see themselves as the universe. Choose which belief is right for you. Nobody sits comfortably on this fence for long. No matter which one you choose, go all in. Believe it. This is a core belief. Be conscious of it. Let it influence your decisions and goals. Finding your purpose in life is much easier when you choose a side, or rather, when you realize which side you're on. Understand others and help them realize their core beliefs. I really shouldn't have to explain this one, but because this is a definitive guide, there are no cutting corners. Understanding is a gift that stems from listening. Listening to others blesses them and affirms them. Listening to others' passions to help them realize their goals. Ignore others and their path will become jaded and unsettled. This causes chaos in the world. Chaos exists without peace. If you are well learned in listening, you can do so without impatience. Move on to other habits, such as collective conscious input. By tapping into another person's perspective, you can see obstacles in a unique way, and with your input could help with the problem-solving process. Be careful not to confuse a similar perspective with objective perspective. In the root, this regularity can cause more obstacles. Healthy eye contact if you choose to be an observer. Be a forgiving or enlightening one. Set your intention and use your eyes to communicate your trust and influence positive change. Clear your mind often. There are many beliefs that stem from the idea of having a clear mind, and with research, there are many practices which you can do this. Here are some examples. Biotic feedback, being aware of your body can release clogged energy that would otherwise build up. Hypnotic trance, taking a break from conscious thinking can help refocus your mind on what's important and distract from what can be seen as harmful thinking. Mindfulness. Mindfulness is a practice used in many different areas of life. Being mindful can sometimes grant more information than being focused. Mindfulness is a gentle practice and can be used in a variety of mundane to chaotic situations to help you reassess a situation that otherwise could be influenced solely on one biased perspective. Some practices include being aware of what color an object is, being aware of your breath, and being aware of your thoughts. And that's it for Lesson 1. No dogma, simply how to be a human. Further understanding of relationships between the self and the universe can be found in lessons 2 through 4. Understanding on how to let go of the self entirety can be found in lessons 4 through 8. How to be human. A definitive guide for being on earth. Lesson 2. Lesson 2 is about happiness. True happiness is as elusive as it is enticing. From beginning our lives to the end, happiness seems to be a construct embedded in everyone's mind, something to strive for, something to hold on to. But why? Why do babies laugh and grown men cry? We harbor false hope in curiosities until they fail our expectations. So often it can be expected at times. In the movie The Great Dictator, Charlie Chaplin says this. In the 17th chapter of St. Luke, it is written, "The kingdom of God is with man, not one man nor a group of men, but in all men, in you." Directly, this is not a quote about happiness, but yet it applies. In a conversation with the user of an app that brings people together, an anonymous user touches on the idea of happiness as this. Humans are never truly happy, but we strive to be happier, but never achieve it. From the beginning of life, what we immediately strive for is true happiness. The gap between these two quotes can be described as deep, but it can also be described as the different feelings that you encounter when reading them. The truth about happiness is this. Happiness is everywhere in essence. It's not there for you to find or for you to hold. As the great Osho once said, if you love a flower, don't pick it up. Because if you pick it up, it dies, and it ceases to be what you love. So if you love a flower, let it be. Love is not about possession. Love is about appreciation. That's not a quote about happiness, but they say everything's connected. End of Lesson 2. How to be human, a definitive guide for being on earth. Lesson 3. Lesson 3 is about being comfortable in your own skin. It's important to be comfortable in your own skin. One who has lost all sense of identity may have the necessity for the occasional reminder that there is a you in there. This may seem more on par with core belief number 1, believing that you are a person. It is important to understand that as a rule, not to consider your belief superior to anyone else's, and that your secondary belief can be adapted to fit within a core. Life is not a game, as cynics would lead you to believe. Some beliefs stem from false beliefs, beliefs that you don't really believe but have planted themselves as such, and possibly going as far as imitating a core belief. Self-worth. Let me start out by saying that self-worth is a lie. Nobody values themselves over anyone else. There is no number attached to each and every person that you see. This is true even for the most judgmental of people. What these people are judging, although they do not realize it, is how compatible someone is with them and their imitations of core beliefs. The reason why it is so easy to create false beliefs is that it is easy to desire a recognizable model of yourself. Nobody sees their action-to-action moment and movements, and so, therefore, it is easy to judge oneself, not based on what others see of them, but instead what they are responding or reacting to a situation, often in the presence of others. For example, when you see a hero, someone whom you respect a great deal, and they make a wrong turn or a mistake they wish to take back, they see themselves as a villain, while you gain more respect for their repentance or recognition of their mistake. Another imitation core belief to look out for is everything could be perfect. A critical mind could look at this statement and say, why shouldn't we strive for perfection? Isn't perfection a state of being within ourselves worth achieving? To that I say this. Perfection is a paradox. It's neither universally sound or logically so. Either everything is perfect or nothing is. In the same respect, life is made of balance. Say you have a great day at a ball game. That was perfect, you could say. However, you can only say this without meaning or grasp of what perfection or imperfection truly is. The limitations put on ourselves when we strive towards a goal should be that of only will. If you are unwilling to do something, then it is not an option. Therefore, the only way to get a full picture of perfection would be in the way of serendipity. Serendipity is the occurrence and development of events by chance in a happy or beneficial way. Serendipity is not a core belief, but rather a secondary belief connected to the feelings connected to an action, etc. Understanding these connections is the best way to become comfortable with being you. Some other things to get you started. Hobbies, talking, understanding. Remember, you are not your past, you are not your future, you are you. You are a human being on earth. End of lesson 3. Author's note. The importance of meditation. When you have a mental disorder, as I do, meditation along with the right medication can be a really good way to stay balanced in this modern world. I got inspiration for writing this in a number of different ways, but really I just wanted to incorporate what I had learned thus far through meditation and self-preservation in this way. Charlie's Demise. An artful, less than finished work by Jacob Parnell. Setting the scene of Charlie's untimely demise, I will now take you to a place where he called home for an unmarked amount of days. Jazz music played in the background. It was the type of jazz music that would remind you of words, such as riffs and beats. This was the new Charlie. He would soon revert back to his lame, sane self again, like the flowers for Algernon, in a matter of days or weeks, but not months. For now, though, at this moment, Charlie Lynx was insane. He was human. Every time the jazz music would play a long note, he could feel it in the speck of his mind in which he knew that he was. He could feel it. Charlie didn't know where the jazz music was coming from. Was it in the back of his mind? Or was it silently playing from the speakers in front of him? Clumsy wind tickles, he thought without reason. He felt the statement to be profound, though, so he kept it in his mind to let it linger. Fall is fickle, he continued his thought. Seasons lost, soon to pass. He aligned the thought with feelings of grandeur and thanksgiving. The day was like no other, and yet it was like any other as well. Charlie had been living on his own for years now. He knew the routine. Fall was when his mind was most vulnerable. Christmas relied entirely on how much time he spent inside his mind during the fall. The winter would blur his visions and give him paranoid thoughts that came so often as snowflakes hitting the ground. Spring was always a depressive season, as he felt the realization of shedding his skin and therefore the loss of his friend. Summer was all about rebuilding. This day, however, was not in the summer. It was in the fall. Techno music played in the background through the speakers. This day was like any other. It had been winter for a while now, and Charlie was just starting to get used to his identity. Once again, drop the bass, sang the speakers with a rather high amount of treble. Charlie Lynx felt normal. He had the fears and anxiety everyone else portrayed out loud. The only difference is that he kept his culminating aside. He was conscious of his cosmic footprint, yet when he asked about the universe, he would reply, "I don't believe in ghosts. I do believe in spirits." He would leave it at that, but something in him would act up and want to be the salvation of a limp soul. I feel like we all have spirit, and there's a power behind each one. This, along with the purity and 1,000 lifetimes of experience and possibly memories. I don't think that many spirits would hang around the same planet after they die, though. Instead, what we feel or imagine are probably just imprints of people in closely parallel dimensions, or possibly people that are roaming around outside of their bodies while dreaming by astral projection or whatnot. "You're crazy," they would respond in a desperate attempt to not understand. "No," Charlie would say, "but I used to be." Spring. No music played at this time. There was an emptiness that Charlie felt ever since his great adventure had ended. Seasons lost, soon to pass. A thought entered Charlie's mind that he quickly whisked away. He had no time for these things, and yet, if he could just get it together, he would be ready for the summer. "Wake up! Wake up!" Charlie's mom cried each day around the same time by his hospital bed. Charlie had been in a coma for 3 years now. It was time for him to wake up. The following is art. The following is the hardest part. Hashtag hypnosis, hashtag hipster, hashtag an example of pie. Sometimes I think that the more I learn about the world, the more I can change in it. Other times I wonder if ignorance is the key to immortality. Still, I find the conclusion that thinking is far from scientific, and so I save the idea for another day, life, or year. The more I think, the less I know. The more I change, the less I grow. The less I stray, the more it turns gray. The more I wonder, the less I want. The more I pray I may have my day. Here's the lessons, let years be taught. Part 1, Forest Rhymes with City. Lessen the key, break the lock. Set scene, forestry. Like a dog in the fog on a log I encountered. I have my ways, in a voice that I pondered. A road yet wandered is kept in heart, said a voice on yonder. Cheek roses, chill dusk. To be fair, I replied in a civil new tongue. A heron kept his stray in part. The dusk settles, inept new learning styles to teach kids. Grass changes, dew rises to leave Seattle in a smoky haze, apart from in half. North staff remember, set guns to phase. Behalf of setting the scene of Charlie's untimely demise, I will now take you to the world he called home for an unmarked amount of ... Electric May was the name of the foggy day where the confused man chose his path and his dollars turned to. This is just a phrase. My mind's own whistles. Is that even a phrase? Garden. Train station. Is this all a dream? Hashtag claymation. Science, tag, theory, fickle. Get out of the way, said a man in an overcoat that was dressed like a pickle and displaying emotional fashion. My soul's new crystals. Woman 12 o'clock. Part 2, Crystal Rhymes with Missile. Set around Christmas time where a man finds for the first time he is dying. He stands tall. It's all okay. Clumsy wind tickles. October's dreams move so fast. Coal burns nickel. Seasons lost, soon to pass. Eccentric corridor. Fall. Wiggle. Down. Well. Never fickle. Never can tell. Restless. Meanwhile, 12 turns to 1. Better out than in, I always say. Shock. Wobble. Spock. And a movie reference. Part 2 of 1/2. If I die today, tomorrow revived. If the machine unkept, I stay alive. Checklist. Life. Box. Insanity. Square. Clarity. Check it. Equilibrium. Heart. Breath for a second or a millisecond more. Fire burns inside, so I'm knocking down the door. Witches stay alive, so we nail them to the floor. Bored? Civil unrest. Always wanting more. Super protest. Poor Saint Nick. Antics protect. 1. Indecent holler. Blue stands for tolerance. Gun. Pie. Iron meets the ant. Hollow for sure. Miss? The true floor now chants. Forever unsure. Behind your eyes you never seem to rest. I'll find the gleam men cannot test, meaning I'll find you when the stars are cheating. I'll lose the road, I'll burn the start, fire to Spider-Man, our webs apart. Reckless, smart, wise, or witty. Tell me, O reader, what rhymes with city? Spock, winning, fun, pity, pun, a city in parts. Dark Matter. Dark Matter. A broody, less than finished work by Jacob Parnell. This is a story about a man who, against all odds, regained his sanity. This is a true story. There was this man who every time he would go through a doorway, he would end up in another place entirely. When he went to leave the hospital, Jacob was in the hospital. But not the fun kind where you could get candy and ice cream smuggled in by nice nurses and get told that you're going to get better. No, this was the kind of hospital that the people around you know so little about you that it's scary. For you, for them, for everyone. You don't get told that you're going to get better. In fact, some people don't even believe that you're sick. Other people think that you're worse than you appear, like a bomb ready to go off. You're placed with inmates with homicidal tendencies who, by all other means, are really nice guys. You're there with the girl who gets electric shock therapy because their controlling parents think that it might help, even though it's making her worse. You can tell the guilt in her eyes come from false memories that never happened, but that doesn't matter. When you tell someone that what they don't know, what they saw was all a dream, they tend to get very defensive or sad in my case. They think that the world is changing around them, which can be scary for an 18-year-old that doesn't know what loss is. You're there with people crying, people screaming, not wanting a needle go in their arm because they still think they have rights. You're there with old people and young people and people that hold your hand and tell you that you have the potential to be the one to save them all. You're there with people who run away from home, from life, from themselves. It seems that everyone is running away, but then there are the people that are depressed. The people that are done running, but sad they ever stopped. This place is hell, but it was run by CMU students who didn't know what they were signing up for. The psychologists who want to help you don't run it. They're just consultants who watch you. God, no wonder why I was paranoid. Knowing how much I ate was going to be recorded and scaled, and something that would tell my doctor that there was something wrong with me, a deduction that would forever change my entire life. I know it's a little thing, but when you feel like your life has meaning, I mean every little thing has meaning, you tend to become a bit skeptical of the reason why you're here, the reason why God can't save you, the reason why you see demons at night, the reason why that girl told you you could save them. It was like something in me connected the dots and took control of my body. The side effect is that I would never be the same. I would never be 100% sane. Because sanity is born and insanity is worth exploring. Because when you're in a psychosis, when your psychosis is based on facts and actual things around you, who can help you? That's why God couldn't save me. Because he made me that way. Because everything around me was placed by his hand. Because the reason why I saw demons at night, because I figured out too much. An older man once told me while eating a cup of yogurt that I took too big a bite from an apple, which I naturally assumed that he meant the apple from the tree of life, the knowledge of good and evil. Of course, I was holding an apple at the time, but that was the fun of it, everything in double meaning, except for the things that weren't. Life was a puzzle, and I liked puzzles, especially when all the pieces were already in the right place. I tend to describe my insanity like magic, but it took its toll on my personal life. I was in a mental hospital after all. Listen to me. I've got something to say that weighs on my mind all the time, and you might just call it bullshit. Listen to me. Don't forget that I'm the one that's nice and funny sometimes when the sun shines on my brain. Listen to me. I've got a train of thought running and crashing into the walls of my sanity, and it's not funny anymore. Listen to me. If you just listen, maybe I can make words soar, but you're not listening. You're too busy thinking that your pedigree is higher than mine, and normally that's fine, but not when I call you friend and all that entails. And you see me as a list of fails and faults that are funny? Well, it's not funny anymore. I said, listen to me. Are you listening? Are you there? Should I be scared that I'm the only one in this world that cares? You call it bullshit, but you forget that I was there in your darkest hour, forgiving you with all my power and trying to make you happy. Listen to me. Sure, it's kind of crappy what you did to me that one time, and it's not fine, but I forgave you the second that you did because you were my friend, or you were, until the bitter end, until I defend myself and my self-worth. But it's not worth it if I'm a hassle. Listen to me. Come down from your castle. Listen to me. I shouldn't have to say it. I seem timid, maybe scared. You see me as broken when you're no longer there. But I was the one protecting you. You forget that every corner you turned, I was trying to make you better, trying to give you a new perspective. But you don't want to mess with the guy with the weird perspective, the one with the voice inflections that listens but can't take directions. He always loses, and you always score. He doesn't choose who he is. Maybe he's confused or torn. You don't have time for that. You're on the one-track mind to success, and he's always second best. Listen to me. I'm not angry. I'm at peace. But that took time. The world has you on its leash, making you think that this and that is fine, but that's just weird. Maybe I'm weird. Maybe it's a sign that I'm meant for something better. But while I'm here, I just want to send this letter telling you I care. Maybe you should too. But you're no longer there. Please don't misconstrue what I say. Don't let it weigh in your conscience. Take it as a lesson. Know that I'm confident, competent, and not always there. Because I've got something on my mind. But now I've found someone who cares just to listen to me. Author's note. Me again. Hey, how are you holding up? I know this book has gone to some pretty dark places since the last time we talked, but I want you to know that it's not without its silver lining. I turned out okay. I thought I was lost, without all hope, but with patience and time, I came back from my first psychosis. Sure, I've had some sense, but not without moments of peace and truly wonderful times in between. It's good to have a good support system. I have my family and some friends that stuck by me, and in the end, that's something we all need. I hope you have a good support system too. I think to wrap this up, I'm going to add a couple of poems I've written that mean a lot to me right now. See you on the next page. It's never my intention to settle down. I always try to be a crook more than a clown. I look into eyes and find they are forever friendly, going down the road wherever you send me. The real injustice is when justice wins and locks you up instead of settling sins. Where to begin? Even those who claim to be holy say we're born into sin. Those who really know me would say personality is a thing to be pinned up, forever grateful. Then walk along your way, smashing the great bull. Imagine you're on the planet of misfit toys. You're happy with your new Rolls Royce. So happy you might as well rejoice. Well, guess what? It's not a choice, not an option. You must go about your day until death pops in. You see, we're all just locked into fate, and settling down is just to wait instead of to do something about it. Rock your head, invest your wit, set fire to an entire island, have a fit. Many authors know. That poem was written for my girlfriend, now fiance, based off a poem she wrote a long time ago. A few ideas in the poem are 1. Wine, 2. The island of misfit toys, and 3. The fact that when we're together, it's not like we're settling down. We're just having adventures together. I think that's a really beautiful thing. I hope you have someone to share adventures with, and if you don't, I hope you eventually do. She really is the best thing that's ever happened to me. This one's called The Dew, and it was written for my mom. Heart settles for a second or a millisecond more. Dew rises, leaving the world in a smoky haze. This is not a phase. This is just me. She prayed. I stayed away from all that. When I was younger, everything was, as a matter of fact, everything was reading newspapers for the comic strips. Everything was detective novels fit for my young mind. She left it all behind, not by choice. She was my voice. She was my mom. 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 She watched me read poetry with sweaty pits, fear hiding behind my eyelids. It helped that she was there. It helped the fear. Performing in front of people, something I didn't often do. Now the smoke rises, leaving only dew. Who am I now? What will I become? My mom knew me, but someday I'll only say she knew me when I was young. I'm not ready for that. I'm not sure I'll ever be. That day will come and the dew will rise again. The dew behind my eyelids. Thank you for listening. Jacob Parnell, 2019.